Engaged to Sam, I feel his resentment simmer beneath the surface. "You've always chosen other guys over me," he says, while I drown in guilt over a trip and a past rejection. How do I prove I'm committed without spiraling into self-doubt? This is my first post, so hopefully I will get all the rules right. I really just need to express my feelings and hopefully receive advice on how to improve the situation. I, 39 years old, female, am engaged to a man I will refer to as Sam, 41 years old, male, and sometimes I feel as though he resents me despite his claims to the contrary. I met Sam back in 2008 when I was 22 and he was 24. At that time he was in the military and I met him while he was on leave visiting his best friend in Kentucky. We hit it off immediately and exchanged phone numbers. He was extremely attractive, in shape, intelligent, funny, and everything I had ever wanted in a partner. We communicated every day after that first night for about 3 months. Sam had a 2-year-old son from a previous relationship and was preparing to select his orders for the next 4 years, intending to move overseas. He was still stationed in the United States when I met him. He provided me with a list of potential locations he was considering and asked what I would choose. I said Italy. He then asked me to be his girlfriend and to move to Italy with him. It is important to note that at this point I had only seen him twice. We met up one more time and had dinner with him and his friends. We had not met each other's families and in my opinion we were still in the process of getting to know one another. At the time I did not know the term love bombing, but I feared that this was what was occurring. I could not understand why, after such a short amount of time, he would ask me to quit my job, leave college, and move overseas. I had never had a man offer to take care of me. I was raised by a single mother and had been working since I was 14 to help pay for my private high school and college. I was also still in school. It took me 6 years to graduate college because there were times when I ran out of money and had to work more hours to save up. I considered the offer, but in reality I thought it was too soon and told him I needed more time to get to know him. Additionally, I knew that my mother would never allow me to move overseas with a man she had never met. Yes, I was an adult, but I was still living with her at the time and she is very protective. After I expressed this to him, his attitude towards me shifted immediately. He said he was hurt, embarrassed, and so on that I had declined his request. Although we continued to talk, he never again mentioned the possibility of us being together or me joining him one day. He became a little cold and distant with me for a while. He subsequently accepted orders to Japan for the next 4 years. We maintained contact and I would wake up at 2 a.m. just to Skype him. His attitude improved, but we never revisited the idea of being together. We talked for hours as friends. He returned to the United States on leave at one point and I drove to Kentucky to see him. The visit was awkward. He acted very immaturely, teasing me and not sitting next to me during the first day of the visit. On the second day, in frustration, I was in my 20s at the time, I went on Facebook and posted, "At what age do guys grow up?" I did not tag him or provide any context. He saw the post, called me and said he no longer wanted to see me that weekend. I tried to play it cool, but I was hurt. Unfortunately for him, he had introduced his best friend who he was staying with to my friend and he still wanted to see her. We met them at a club and then went back to his apartment for a movie. Sam did not speak to me the entire night. At that point, I figured it was over. Eventually, after he returned to Japan, he got back in touch. We resumed a friendship, but that was all. By that time, I had started dating other people because I did not believe things with Sam were going anywhere. He was supposed to visit me at one point but never showed up. Sam left the military in 2012 or 2013 and moved to New York City. Around this time, I met the father of my child, now 42 years old, male. It was a rocky relationship, to say the least. In 2016, I gave birth to a baby boy, and in 2020, we broke up. Sam and I began talking again more frequently because I was now single, but it remained just a friendship. He was also quite secretive about what he was doing in New York City and did not provide me with much information. I knew he was working on a book and was writing, but that was all. As I mentioned, Sam was funny, but sometimes his jokes crossed the line. He would intentionally try to annoy me at times. Unfortunately, my relationship with my child's father had ended with domestic violence. Sam's joke was inappropriate and triggered memories of that experience for me. I was a new single mother and his comment shook me, so I ended the call and blocked him. For the next 2 years, he constantly attempted to reach out, even having his best friend try to contact me. At that point, I realized it was just a joke that went too far, but I felt disregarded because of my feelings and experiences. I still did not respond. Before blocking him, we had maintained a friendship since 2008, so I did miss him. In January 2020, I put down a deposit for a trip to Thailand. I had always wanted to visit and found a group trip. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, the trip was postponed for 3 years. Fast forward to 2022. I met a man and we started a relationship, dating for about a year before eventually moving in together. He was aware of my intentions to travel to Thailand in 2023 and wanted to join me. I was happy to have someone accompany me because I had never traveled alone that far. The trip was still several months away. Unfortunately, by the time the trip arrived, the relationship was not working out. He had just finalized his divorce before we started dating and was focusing on getting his life back on track while also dealing with a custody battle. I informed him that we should not continue our relationship and that he needed time to work on himself. He was a little hurt but understood. However, since we had both already paid for the trip, we decided to go anyway. Once I realized the relationship was ending, I reached out to Sam to check in on him. It had been several years and I was in a better mental state. To be honest, I missed him and our conversations. He responded almost immediately. He expressed how much he loved me, missed me, regretted all the mistakes from the past, and was eager to pursue a relationship with me. I guess I felt I had messed up the first time by asking for additional time, so I agreed. In hindsight, this was a mistake. I still had the Thailand trip coming up in a couple of weeks and told Sam about it. He said he was okay with my decision to go. When I returned, Sam was extremely upset. I had been gone for a week, and he expressed that he had expected me to cancel the trip, feeling very hurt that I traveled with another man. My ex-partner was also still in the process of moving his belongings out. Although we were no longer in a relationship, we were still roommates for about 2 weeks while he completed the move. Sam was also annoyed to discover that we were on the same phone plan, and due to my ex not paying the bill, it took me some time to get my phone number back on my own. Sam stated that the moment I called him, he blocked every female he knew and believed I should do the same on social media and my phone, which I did. He would have random bursts of anger towards my ex-partners, claiming they had no right to try to date me or take his place. They did not know him. At one point, he even threatened violence against them. The fact that I went on the Thailand trip and that I did not go with him back in 2008 is constantly used against me. I feel as though I cannot express my own opinions or complaints about our relationship because every conversation returns to how it is my fault. I must acknowledge that everything is my fault before he will even engage in discussions with me. He frequently questions whether I am being unfaithful and if I am speaking with other men. He has looked through my phone and I even gave him the passcode. I have never cheated on him or in any other relationship. However, he claims that the overlap of my trip to Thailand with my ex and the fact that I was with him has made him suspicious, and that I have always chosen other men over him since I rejected him in 2008. I do recognize that I made mistakes. I should have closed one chapter before moving on to another. However, having him open up to me for the first time since 2008 made me feel that the man I met back then had returned, and perhaps we could achieve what we should have had back then. I was afraid that if I did not jump at the opportunity, he would shut down again like he did the first time. The daily questioning and accusations have persisted even after we became engaged in 2024. It hurts my feelings sometimes because I am not that kind of person. I have blocked any men I have dated in the past and no longer send memes to male friends on social media. I inform him of my whereabouts and exactly what I am doing, yet I still face accusations of infidelity. If a man even comments on or likes a Facebook post, I am subjected to questions. Half the time they are family members, and the remainder are childhood friends. My question is, what can I do to alleviate what I perceive as resentment stemming from my rejection of him in 2008 and my vacation in 2023? I realize this is a lot, but he is a good man. I discovered that while in New York City he attended and graduated from college. He has traveled the world and is extremely intelligent. He has published several books. He is the most consistent person I have ever met. He cared for me when I was ill and nearly died from blood clots, assists me with my aging mother, and helps with my son. He ensures all my needs are met and constantly offers positive reinforcement. I'm very happy until we have a disagreement, during which everything I have done is thrown back in my face. I am now experiencing significant guilt for both not going with him in 2008 and for the trip in 2023. Sometimes this guilt escalates to the point of self-harm thoughts. I feel as though I ruined what we could have had. We do not go out often because I once encountered a guy friend of mine while with him who attempted to give me a friendly hug like he always does. However, when I noticed Sam's expression, I backed away. That incident occurred over a year ago, and he continues to bring up that man whom I have never even dated. When I go out with friends, he calls me multiple times. I shared my feelings with him, stating that I want to fix things and not feel this way. However, every time something occurs, all of these past issues are raised again, and the accusations of infidelity begin anew. He is not particularly interested in couples therapy. How can I demonstrate to him that I am completely committed, not unfaithful, and regret past decisions? Story 2. Roommate from hell. I never expected a friend to do this. When I confronted her about her toxic behavior, her dad pulled the plug, saying, "You're mentally insane." 2 months later, I found peace at the beach while they tried to extort me for $2,000. Can you believe it? I am not posting about bad roommates because it is not a current issue. I will break this story down into a sequence of events, otherwise it would resemble a novel. I am very curious to know if anyone else has gone through something similar. I was a 21-year-old female, and my roommate was a 20-year-old female. I did not know her outside of class in high school, but she always appeared to be very nice. I was working 3 jobs, so she decided to look at places for us. We signed the lease and moved into the first place, which cost $875 a month. I moved my belongings in, and 3 days later I received a random text from her father, whom I had not met or spoken to until that point, stating that he got us out of the lease and was moving our belongings to a friend's garage for the time being. The reason given was that the apartment had code violations. What he actually did was pressure the landlord into breaking the lease and refusing to return our deposit. He simply did not approve of an inadequate apartment. However, he lied to me at that point and said he had received the deposit back. He wrote me a check from his personal account. I panicked because we could not find any other affordable places and I did not have a place to go. She still had a comfortable situation with her father. He found us a place for $950 and stated he would put the utility bill in his name and pay that for us to make up the difference in price from the last place. I was not really okay with it, but I was out of options. We moved into this new place and everything was fine for about 2 weeks. My roommate was out of work on unemployment and was taking full advantage of it while I was still working 3 jobs and commuting for one of them for an hour. I was also caught in a very toxic relationship. My roommate was in the midst of a downward spiral following a breakup. We were both in difficult situations. We spent too much time together and I began to notice subtle ways in which she dropped her pleasant facade. The more I got to know her, the more she seemed to exhibit traits of narcissism. She had nothing good to say about any of the people she introduced me to. She dominated conversations when we were out together or had visitors. She would break things around the apartment through carelessness. She practiced some sort of stomping exercise indoors, which our downstairs neighbor repeatedly complained about. She smoked marijuana inside despite having a nosy and strict landlord. The list goes on. The next issue was her father's involvement. He inserted himself into my life as well. He let himself into the apartment on several occasions because my roommate gave him a key, even after I explicitly asked her not to. He took it upon himself to paint an accent wall, throw out one of my chairs, and paint my hardwood antique coffee table. He even took my laundry and did it for me when I specifically asked him not to enter my room. My roommate insisted repeatedly that she was doing nothing to enable this behavior, but I started to feel suspicious the more intrusive he became. She inserted herself into my life and seemed to prey on the fact that I was in a vulnerable situation. It was as if she had a hero complex. She would ask me how I was doing and often employed therapeutic language. It is difficult to explain, but it gave off the same vibe you would get from a free-spirited person under the influence at a music festival who approaches you, grabs your face, and claims to see your inner child. You know what I mean. Like holding my hand, speaking in a soft tone, preaching about self-care and such. She put on this facade of being a safe person which was very manipulative. Consequently, I confided in her frequently. I began to feel increasingly uneasy with her strange behavior. We went out together and she spilled my drink while showing no remorse. She actually walked away completely. We attended a party together where I did not know anyone and she abandoned me as soon as we arrived. There were other incidents I mentioned earlier. Once, she even took my seat and seized control of my Bluetooth speaker when we had company because I got up to use the restroom. One day, I confronted her about her self-centered behavior and how it was affecting me negatively on top of working 3 jobs and dealing with a miserable boyfriend. I told her she was not being a good friend, and she decided to leave the apartment. I reacted strongly, expressing how unfair it was for her to leave to her parents while we were having a conflict. I told her that she had obligations to me as my roommate and could not just disappear a week before rent was due. This is where I admit I was acting like a jerk, but I was reacting out of paranoia, knowing what the plan would be the moment she left. I bombarded her with messages for 2 days before deciding to call her father directly. She ignored probably 50 texts. I was definitely losing my composure, but considering they had already gotten me kicked out of one place, I felt scared. It is important to note that her father was also a blatant narcissist. The apple does not fall far from the tree. I called him after my roommate had not responded for 3 days and rent was now due in 4 days. He answered the phone in a sing-song voice, affectedly cheerful in tone. He downplayed my concerns about my roommate's silence days before rent was due. I kept pressing because he kept deflecting and trying to put it on me, acting as if I was worried for no reason. He eventually snapped and unleashed a tirade on me, claiming that I was mentally unstable and bad for his daughter and that he wanted us out of the apartment within 24 hours. I hung up. I called the landlord and explained the situation. She informed me that I could either remain on the lease alone, find another roommate, or leave and forfeit my deposit. She was fairly sympathetic and I understood that was the best she could offer. We had only been there for 1 month after all. I considered the idea of finding a roommate for about a day and then abandoned it. I decided to look for another place and ended up securing one just in time. It was an 852-bedroom at the beach, and I would be moving in with one of the coolest guys I knew. It felt like the calm after the storm. Moving out was, of course, not simple. The father attempted to spin the narrative against me. A day before rent was due, he sent me a text stating that since my roommate's unemployment had unexpectedly ended, she would be unable to pay rent. I informed him that, per our last conversation, I was aware she intended to move out and had already made my own arrangements. He then attempted to use this as some sort of admission of blame regarding the move-out. He claimed I initiated it, so I should be entirely financially responsible. I mostly ignored it because she had the same options I did. Thus, his assertions that she had to move out because I told the landlord she wanted to were such nonsense that they were not worth addressing. I moved out and the drama was finally over. I resumed my life. 2 months later, I received a text from the landlord indicating that she had sent part of our deposit back. However, the check needed to be cashed by both of us. I emailed my former roommate since she was blocked on my phone and provided her with the days and times I was available to meet at the bank. In response, I received an extortion email from her father. It detailed every expense he believed I owed them reimbursement for, again claiming that I told the landlord she wanted to leave when she supposedly intended to stay. Nonsense. He asserted I owed them for various items, including the initial deposit he issued me from his own account after he forcibly removed my possessions from a property for which I had signed a lease without my consent. He demanded that I pay for her moving truck, the entire utility bill, her application fees, and her share of the deposit, instead of simply meeting at the bank to cash the existing check. I was expected to pay it out of my own pocket, among other ridiculous claims. He included a lengthy personal letter stating how much he and his family had done for me and how he felt used. He warned that they had lawyers in the family and would sue if I did not send him what amounted to $2,000. Attached to this email was also a letter from my roommate that was equally absurd, in which she claimed how much she had been there for me and how she felt betrayed. The conclusion of the story is that I ignored them. I recognized they had no valid claims, and if they attempted to take me to court, they would lose. I went on with my life and later heard through the grapevine that my ex-roommate was telling people I had traumatized her and was an abuser. Mind you, this was over just one argument. I was in a notably rough place at the time, and it was truly upsetting to experience someone who pretended to be supportive later use everything I confided in them against me. She accused me of emotionally abusing her. She claimed I put her in danger by having my unpleasant boyfriend over, even though he was not physically abusive, just an inconsiderate person with a cheating problem. The only risk he posed was to me. She also claimed she had tried to save me from him, but I would not allow her to intervene. Again, nobody asked her to insert herself so aggressively. It was also frustrating because all we needed to do was have a discussion. We could have tabled it for another time, but she did not need to run away. Even if she decided to leave, she could have at least given me a heads up and assured me it was only temporary. We could have handled the situation like adults and moved out a month later, as stated in our lease, to ensure we received our deposit back. It was month to month. However, she took the most petty and selfish route possible. Still, it is what it is. My life greatly improved after that. To this day, it remains one of the wildest experiences I have ever gone through, and I am amazed at how well I emerged from it. It is truly impressive what one is capable of in a survival situation. Story 3. Dating a guy who's fresh out of a relationship and still reeling from it, I thought transparency was key. But when he admits we're just talking, while texting me about his ex crying at a festival, I question how much transparency is too much. Is this worth my time? Super long rant advice welcomed. I have only written a couple of posts, so please be patient if I have formatted anything incorrectly in the Reddit format. I, 24 years old female, met this guy, 25 years old male, on Hinge and have been seeing him for the past 3 weeks. We are not exclusive, rather we are in the talking stage. We have gone on a total of 2 dates, and arguably any normal person responding to this would have stopped after the first. However, I would like open-minded advice as I am trying to navigate this relationship with good intentions. In the past, I have quickly dismissed potential dates based on minor and, to be honest, petty reasons. Therefore, I am attempting to date intentionally by pushing through the icks, so to speak. In terms of compatibility and chemistry, we have similar likes and interests, and we could engage in lengthy conversations that make us lose track of time. We work in similar fields and could still hold entire discussions about work, even though both of us would prefer to talk about something else. He is new to the area, which gave me an ick because in the past, I have gone on dates with guys who generally want a tour guide rather than a relationship, but again, I am keeping an open mind. On our first date, we exchanged small talk here and there, and when the topic of favorite cuisine arose, he told me he loved Vietnamese food, which is also one of my favorites. We then discussed various Vietnamese dishes, and although he is not Vietnamese, he demonstrated considerable knowledge about it. When I made a joke saying someone must have cooked here, he admitted that his ex, who is Vietnamese, was the one who cooked. This would be one of 5 unprompted mentions of his ex, until I later asked him about her. Throughout the date, he intermittently shared experiences about his ex, 22 years old female, taking him to good food places back home, stating that they were each other's first in everything, first relationship, first sexual experience, first time living together. After the 4th mention, I asked, "You are mentioning your ex quite a lot on our date. How long has it been since your breakup?" He apologized profusely before informing me that they broke up 4 months ago, shortly after he moved here. According to him, they would just argue and nothing would ever be resolved. He apologized again, explaining that many of his experiences that related to our conversations stemmed from moments he had with her, feeling that he had nothing to offer without mentioning her. I did not feel angry or offended because I understand that this is just a way of coping with a loss, especially a first one. However, is it not common knowledge to avoid mentioning an ex on a date? I attributed this behavior to coping mechanisms and eventually agreed to a second date. On the second date, he completely stopped mentioning his ex. From what I gather, the only experiences he has without his ex involve going to music festivals with friends. He mentioned that he was attending a music festival here with a friend he met locally, and since they are a stoner, he might try cannabis for the first time. They decided to do this festival before we went on this date, which is important later on. He also disclosed that he wanted to be as transparent as possible with me, expressing his disdain for cheating. And if this were to develop into something long-term, he wanted me to know that he was speaking to me and another woman. Initially, this caught me off guard as it seemed so odd to mention it, especially this early on, but I appreciated his transparency. I value honesty as my top priority when it comes to relationship values. I assumed that since we met on a dating app, he was likely talking to other people. However, he then revealed that the other woman, 22 years old female, was interested only in a friends with benefits arrangement, and at first he agreed to it since he was new to the area and essentially alone. He later confessed that he came to dislike the idea of casual hookups and instead wanted to pursue a relationship. He revealed that he was going to this festival with the friends with benefits since she was going alone before she invited him, and he impulsively agreed. We discussed the prospects of a long-term relationship, but I expressed my hesitations. 1. He recently emerged from a long-term relationship just 4 months ago, and based on my experiences with breakups, I did not truly heal for 7 to 8 months afterward. I know everyone heals at their own pace, but if he is still mentioning his ex, especially on a first date, that raises some red flags. 2. If he claims to be intentional about wanting a relationship, why consider going to a music festival that involves alcohol and drugs, especially since they would have to camp together during this 3-day festival? That is bound to blur the lines and become very complicated very quickly. After I expressed these concerns, I told him it was simply bad timing and that I was hesitant about him. While he is new to the area and should experience new things, I am not prepared to enter a relationship with him because of these concerns. In response to my first point, he explained that since he and his ex were constantly fighting and were unable to reach a compromise, there were times when he sensed they were both checked out but continued the relationship nonetheless. He believes he took the time to process the breakup toward the end of the relationship and feels he is ready to move on soon after the breakup. He expressed regret for mentioning her so often during our first date, explaining that she was involved in most of his significant experiences. Regarding my second point, he remarked that he did not expect someone to be interested in a relationship so soon. I first matched with him, and then the friends with benefits situation occurred 3 days later. She was more upfront about her desires while I took a more gradual approach with just texting for a week. He added that there were no romantic feelings toward the friends with benefits, and it was an impulsive decision to buy non-refundable tickets because he wanted to experience the festival. Additionally, he insisted that if he did not go, she would have to attend alone. The day after our conversation, he informed me that he and the friends with benefits discussed their relationship, and that he did not wish to continue their sexual arrangement out of respect for his intentions toward me. Apparently, she was disappointed that they could not hook up anymore because she liked him, but he reminded her that they were merely friends with benefits. He also reiterated that she did not want a relationship initially and requested that she respect his decision. He then asked me if I wanted to see the text messages, which I declined, opting instead to take his word for it. They still plan to attend the festival together, and according to him, he is committed to maintaining boundaries with her. He also intends to delete Hinge and focus solely on me after the festival. In return, he asked that I also be intentional about building a relationship with him. He stated he did not want to apply too much pressure. and suggested that I could keep Hinge but should promise not to friend-zone him while we work toward a relationship. This next part is currently unfolding. Surprise, it got messy. I do not know whether he has upheld his end of the bargain, but he has been texting me between shows at the festival and whenever he has free time. As it was the first day of the festival, the Friends with Benefits was drinking heavily and began breaking down about why she thinks he does not like her and how no one wants her, among various other insecurities. He managed to calm her down, she passed out, and then he has been updating me about what transpired. Okay, what the heck, I thought we cleared this situation up. I maintained composure, though I questioned why he was texting me about it, and advised him to give her space and suggested that if he wanted, he could leave it to her to respect his boundaries and decide whether to stay or leave the festival early. The next morning, apparently she acted as if nothing had happened and they continued with the festivities, according to what he told me. As the day progressed, he texted me updates about the shows and sent pictures. Okay, cool. However, later that night, I suspected she had been drinking again because he texted me again, revealing that she was crying about him and various other issues from her past, and he was texting me about it. First of all, why on earth are you texting a girl with whom you want to pursue a relationship about the crying girl you used to sleep with? Where is the disconnect here? I understand being transparent, but how much transparency is too much? I do not comprehend why I need to be involved in this process when it is their issue, especially when it is his responsibility to manage this girl's feelings when she did not adhere to her stated intentions. At this point, the situation is messy. It has been overwhelmingly awkward and complicated for everyone involved. I wanted to maintain good intentions, but things are so tangled that I am taking a step back and reducing my communication until the festival concludes. This dynamic is incredibly uncomfortable and messy for all parties, and it is prompting me to question whether I even want to pursue this guy initially. To summarize, long rant about a guy I have been seeing for 3 weeks who might be too transparent, and is causing me to reconsider the value of transparency in a relationship. Story 4. My fiancé confessed to a porn addiction after church, claiming it was his way of coping with childhood trauma. Now, I initiate sex while he struggles to stay hard, leaving me feeling never enough. Is his lack of interest in me rooted in guilt or comparison? Throwaway account, this is a lot to explain. My fiancé and I have been together for 11 years, engaged for 4, and we moved in together when we got engaged. Our sex life has always been really good. It did slow down a bit when we relocated to another state and did van life for a while, but that was mostly because we both worked a lot, and it is quite obvious when someone is busy in a van. Therefore, we tried to keep it to nighttime or when we were parked in more secluded places. All in all, we were quite satisfied, or so I thought, but we will return to that. This problem began about 4 months ago or so, after we moved back to our home state to be closer to family again. Currently, we are staying with my parents while we search for a place with reasonable rent, and I try to secure a new job. For context, he has one very religious brother who had invited him to come to his church. We were not very religious at all at the time. When we first returned, the only job I could find was a seasonal position, which of course did not last long. One day while I was at work, he decided to go to church with his brother, and when he came to pick me up from work that night, he dropped a bombshell on me. He told me that he had a very emotional experience at church, and that everyone at confession urged him to come clean with me about his pornography addiction. He had been watching it almost every day, and from what I remember of that conversation, he was not very clear about the timeline. He said it was how he had always dealt with the sexual trauma from his childhood, but alluded to it possibly escalating in severity over the past 2 years. Not only that, but he had been engaging in certain behaviors so often that he had normalized them and then confessed to emotionally cheating. He stated that he realized watching pornography made him feel less shame about looking at other women, and he had been flirting with other girls when I was not around. There were no text messages or private conversations, and he never escalated it to anything more intimate, swearing he would never sleep with someone else, but he did flirt back with women who approached him at work in similar situations. He cried, admitted he had a problem and that what he was doing was not acceptable, swore he would stop, and apologized to me. I was exhausted after work and really did not know how to respond, as it usually takes me a lot of time to process big emotions and new information. Honestly, part of me felt I already knew something was off because of how people would respond to me at times when I visited him at work, but I pushed it off as paranoia since he had always been faithful in the past, even according to others. So at that moment, I had no reason to think otherwise. I simply nodded, comforted him, and expressed my appreciation for his honesty, stating that I was glad that going to the service helped him feel better. I guess I was just in shock as well. The following day, we both went to work, and I felt so out of it as if everything hit me at once. I cried all day and barely accomplished anything. My supervisor had to pull me off the floor and send me on break. In summary, I felt embarrassed, overwhelmed, betrayed everything. I can be poor at advocating for myself, so I kept my feelings bottled up when I got home and tried to act normally. He is the opposite. He always ensures I express what is on my mind, and he does the same. He has always been my rock when it came to having difficult conversations or making significant decisions. Our communication is good, but this was the first time we had ever faced a problem of this magnitude because we practically never fight or experience many relationship issues. I guess he could tell something was wrong, so I forced myself to share my feelings with him. We sat and talked, and it was very challenging. It was probably one of the most emotionally charged conversations we have ever had, and by the end of it, we were exhausted but felt hopeful about moving forward, as we genuinely love each other and did not want this to end our relationship. He started attending church more frequently and even reading the Bible and the Book of Psalms regularly. We had never been particularly religious, despite coming from religious families, but it seemed to be healthy for him and helped him feel more committed to keeping his word to me, so I encouraged it. Fast forward to more recently. About a month ago, I caught him watching pornography. I was, of course, upset. I had never considered pornography as cheating before we had issues because I thought it was normal for people to watch occasionally. However, once he admitted to having what was essentially an addiction, I began to see his viewing it in a different light. I confronted him in the moment, knocking on the bathroom door, and told him to turn it down. It was late at night, so I suppose he did not think anyone was awake, but it was quite audible from outside the bathroom. He turned it off completely, and the next morning I confronted him about it. It was yet another very lengthy discussion. This time I aimed to address the issue directly, but due to the embarrassment of being caught, he was much less communicative than usual. Nonetheless, we managed to get through it and became more comfortable while realizing that, since we had been together since we were so young and had never had serious discussions about sex, he felt very vulnerable discussing it. That is on us for always assuming we were on the same page sexually. He told me he had, in fact, stopped watching pornography every day and had reduced it to about once a month. The night I caught him, I searched Reddit for advice from others who had partners with a pornography addiction, and that definitely helped me navigate the conversation and formulate questions. I tried to be understanding that going cold turkey could be difficult for someone, and I was pleased that it was becoming less frequent. I double-checked that he had not been flirting with other girls, and he assured me that had completely stopped. I suggested that if he felt comfortable, he should see a therapist to address his trauma and start tackling the issue at its root, and he agreed that could be a good idea. I asked if part of the reason he felt the need to watch pornography was due to our lack of sexual intimacy. He stated that was part of it, as well as the fact that he felt he had some kinks he was too embarrassed to mention. Admittedly, since moving in with my parents, our sex life had really dwindled to maybe once a month. Additionally, I switched to taking birth control, which in the past had significantly decreased my sex drive. Neither of us had been trying to engage in sexual intimacy much at all for various reasons, partly because we had, without realizing it, just gotten used to not having it. He confessed that he contemplated coming to me instead of resorting to pornography, but always felt guilty about bothering me. I apologized for making him feel that way, and we discussed how our living situation, medications, and other factors had been affecting us, etc. Now, however, we were going to the gym together, which has been significantly boosting my sex drive. We also talked about moving soon because we genuinely need our own space. We had an extensive conversation about our desires for our sex life, how often he ideally would like to have sex in a week, talked about trying new things, and even addressed incorporating his kinks, which really were not that extreme, and committing to enhancing our intimacy. Overall, I thought it was a very productive discussion, and we both felt better afterward. Since that conversation, we have been having a lot more sex, which is wonderful, but my issue is that I am starting to feel quite insecure. The thought of him having flirted with other girls sometimes occupies my mind, and I feel like if I were only prettier or more, maybe we would not have had this problem in the first place. Sometimes, when I see girls who I know would be his type, I feel bad about myself. I am doing my best to set that aside and reassure myself that he loves me and is attracted to me, but now I am starting to question that too. Throughout our daily lives, he does things that indicate he finds me attractive. However, he still never initiates, so I do. But since we had sex after that conversation, he has only been able to finish in one way, through oral sex and his kink. At first, I thought it was not a significant issue, but now it seems he becomes unable to maintain his erection when the moment comes for more than that. He either goes soft during intercourse and can only finish through oral sex, or he gets oral sex, remains hard afterward, but then shortly after we attempt penetration, he becomes soft again. We have never encountered this many issues with him staying aroused before, and I am beginning to wonder what is wrong. I cannot tell if I am overthinking things after everything that has happened. Is it perhaps the aftereffects of weaning off pornography that have resulted in him simply not being as aroused as he once was? Is he less sexually attracted to me, possibly because he is mentally comparing me to women in pornography. Honestly, the feeling of never being enough is really starting to affect me. We had just committed to improving our sex life together, but when it comes time to be intimate, he obtains his pleasure while I am left feeling like he is not sexually attracted to me since he cannot keep it up for longer than a few minutes. I know I should probably talk to him about this, but I cannot discern whether I am overreacting or prematurely jumping to conclusions due to my insecurities. Story 5. After refusing to help my friends lie to their parents about a hotel escapade, I became an invisible outcast. You're just a betrayal waiting to happen, H told others, fueling a rumor mill that left me alone and shattered. How do you heal from this betrayal at 19? TLDR at the end. This is a repost because I realized I wrote way too much, and I genuinely want to hear your opinion. The main event that led to this situation occurred in late 2023, and before anyone asks why I'm still discussing this now, I only recently learned about everything that transpired behind my back, yes, 2 years later. I thought these issues resurfacing 2 years later would not affect me. However, my family and friends have noticed that I have not been myself lately. Honestly, at this point, I cannot identify what has been causing my unhappiness, so I hope that sharing my feelings here will alleviate my mental torment as I long to feel happy again. I am a 19-year-old female who recently graduated from tertiary education. Since the first year I have been close to this girl. Let's refer to her as H. We used to be really close and we both enjoyed each other's company. Most of the time she would share her problems with me and I would offer her support because I genuinely valued her as a friend. To me, she was like the big sister I never had, as I admired her maturity and independence. Fast forward to the end of the first year, we both ended up getting boyfriends, and coincidentally the four of us were in the same class. Little did I know, this would end so badly in 2023. To get to the point, I always had a bad feeling about her boyfriend T, as I interacted with him during group projects and he was also close to my boyfriend. He enjoyed making comparisons and had an air of superiority. I later learned that he had been speaking poorly about me to our classmates, making comments about my body, specifically my chest, which is something I cannot change, saying I was unintelligent, I believe nobody is, and much more. For your reference, I was not aware of this when the main event occurred. The most significant aspect that leads to the main event is that I felt T consistently took advantage of my boyfriend, who is the type of person that never says no to others. I apologize for the length of this, please bear with me. The main event. One day while my boyfriend was at my house, he received a call from T. T was panicking, pleading with my boyfriend to come over to the hotel where they were staying. For context, I believe both T and H's parents do not trust them to be together. So T lied to his parents, stating he was with my boyfriend, and his parents wanted photo evidence of that. Consequently, T was frantically asking my boyfriend to come to the hotel so they could take a quick photo, after which he could leave because T and H wanted to engage in sexual activity. My boyfriend then handed the phone to me, and I firmly told T that my boyfriend would not travel all the way to the hotel just for a 2-second photo. At that point, I felt T was treating my boyfriend as a puppet for his own convenience, and I admit I used some blunt phrases such as, "That's your problem for deceiving your parents," etc. He became quite angry and informed H about our conversation. H immediately called me and expressed her disappointment in my unwillingness to assist them, ultimately deciding to end our friendship. At that moment, I looked at my boyfriend, frozen in disbelief. We were both shocked by their reactions, especially H's. Fast forward a bit, H expressed a desire to repair our friendship, and we met up for a thoughtful conversation afterward. We parted on what I thought was a positive note and remained friends for a few months. However, one day she began ignoring me and did not communicate with me for the following months, even when I reached out to her both in person and via text multiple times. Eventually, I ceased my attempts because I did not want to make her uncomfortable, and I felt genuinely saddened by her treating me as if I were invisible. After our internship, many months later, school resumed after our 6-month internship, and she started talking to me again. I was thrilled, and conversing with her felt like the old days from the first and second years. I also discovered that the guy T had broken up with her. I felt relieved for her, as I believed he was not right for her. It was wonderful for the first few hours until I joined her and her 3 other friends for karaoke. Once again, I felt practically invisible to the group, and even though it hurt, I did not question it because I realized that throughout the 2 to 3 hours we were there, she did not glance at me once. That was when I understood she would do it again, and I was correct. She gave me false hope for that one day. Afterwards, she disregarded me and only associated with her 3 friends. Additionally, I learned that she had expelled 2 girls from her group and only maintained her friendship with the remaining 3. What happened behind my back? To summarize, during the years of 2024 and 2025, I endured a terrible experience in class as the majority of the students treated me as if I were invisible. It was exceedingly difficult for me to act normally, and I was genuinely trying my best to contribute to group projects. However, I discovered the reason why people in my class and even those outside my class, whom I had known since the first year, consistently ignored me whenever I attempted to say hello to them. They would not even acknowledge my presence. H instructed others not to speak to me or befriend me, implying that I would betray them. This explains why some individuals treated me poorly in class, as they ignored me even when I approached them. Sometimes they would deliberately act in ways to make me feel excluded as well. Regarding the karaoke situation, it appears that H felt I did not understand the dynamics that day and questioned why I joined them. Her entire friend group ignored me that day. Many people in my first-year class disliked me, and recently when they gathered to discuss one of their birthday chalet events, several insisted I could not attend. I suspect it might be due to H, T, or both of their actions, as they likely spread rumors about me to our collective acquaintances. They labeled me self-absorbed and cringeworthy due to my social media posts, circulated my videos to disparage me or ridicule me. Additionally, I found out that H spoke poorly about her close friends to others. This revelation shocked me because I felt that the person engaging in these actions behind my back was not the individual I knew in the first year who was genuinely kind. It truly broke my heart to learn about all of this recently. Afterward, I spent a few days reflecting at home and working to improve my mood by telling myself that at least I graduated and would not have to see these people again. The only time I would need to encounter them would be on my graduation day. I intend to leave these issues behind and forgive all the individuals I mentioned above. I believe I possess enough emotional maturity to do so, and I am actually grateful to know what occurred because it has made me a stronger individual. I hope this provides me with the closure I need. Please share your thoughts and suggestions on what I should have done differently. I truly value my friendships and do not want to lose any more friends. I hope to make new acquaintances in university while leaving the past behind. I truly appreciate your reading all the way to this point. It means a great deal to me. TLDR, my friends wanted to engage in sexual activity, and because I did not assist them in deceiving their parents, they began spreading rumors about me to everyone we knew, turning me into an outcast. Since then, almost everyone has treated me as if I were invisible.